that's because you moved that over from the police.
That's what it was. There was a portion of the radio maintenance that we're responsible for with the city of Fort Worth, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, that the police department has been carrying in their budget for all these years, and this year they split it out and put part in police, part in fire. So that's what that difference is.
We had tried to work it out last year, we just couldn't make the numbers work, so we did it another year, and this year is the year that they took all the full control of their radio.
That was
So
a
the dollars really are staying the same.
Yeah, it's just moved from budgets.
Which column they're in.
Yes, sir. Switch budgets.
Well, even taking the cost of the payment of the truck out, we're still increasing at $103,000 what we paid last year, is that right?
I don't have it in front of me. I'm not here to argue that number with you at all. If that's what it says.
No, I understand.
Yes, sir. If that's what it says, that's what it says.
It just, looks like an awful lot of money to maintaining three vehicles, $30,000.
Well, just to put that in perspective, one preventative maintenance service on either one of those fire engines without finding any problems is $3,500, and those have to be done every 6 months.
7,000 right there with no problems.
Times 2 trucks. So $14,000 of our vehicle maintenance is merely preventative maintenance to keep them on the streets. That doesn't include tires, brakes, or any unexpected maintenance we may have.
And I was thinking that when we went to Fort Worth dispatch, it was gonna be somewhat of a wash from fire alarm, but
The dispatching fees there are some differences as far as we have to pay for internet service and our Wi-Fi in the trucks that allow the computers to connect to the CAD. All of that, some of that was pulled out of the line item that shows all that in the budget. I don't remember what the line item's called, where we had all of our Wi-Fi cards previously. Some of that money has just been shifted over into the dispatch line item because all of that money is paid to Fort Worth. They set all that up and they manage all that for us, and we just pay the fee. Versus we were paying AT&T directly before.
well, it seems, I don't know who does that fleet management, but it seems like a lot of, I don't know how many vehicles the police department has.
Sure.
They're under,
I can't either.
under 20,000 for
You
three
now?
vehicles. 20,
Yeah, a bunch of them like that.
Councilman, I would argue that that is an apple to orange comparison. A fire engine versus a Tahoe, there's no comparison. Everything on those big trucks is expensive to take care of. And just like the police cars, they're emergency vehicles that have to be maintained in tip-top shape at all times, because the last thing we want is for one of those to fail in the middle of something.
and I wouldn't argue that, I just want to make sure we're getting the best price.
And that's why we have, that's why we have a chief, and that's why we have a city manager. I don't know that they need their hand held on every single item to say, are we getting the best price, are we getting the best price, are we getting the best price?
And we are using the maintenance facility that is at the manufacturer.
I get that, but we've gone through it. So I don't get going through this line item by line item, and I'm finding everything that's gone up and making staff justify it. It's the city manager's budget, it's $89,000 in the black right now. And, I mean, on the salaries, he answered that question in 15 seconds, and it took us 10 minutes to actually ask it 5 more times before he got comfortable with what his answer on the salaries was. And we had an answer to start with. So if we have a serious question, I'd like to ask that, but I don't want to go through this.
I consider it a serious question.
Okay.
That's why I asked you.
Okay.
All right.
You asked about the Historical Society being listed on an ad right now.
We're talking dollars that could be spent somewhere else, Joe, that's all I'm asking is, if we're gonna list that, why don't we put it somewhere else, so what it's gonna do is good. I didn't know we were taking it out and paying other things, it says Historical Society. If we're gonna pay $500 for an ad for a company that doesn't even meet anymore, well, it's $500 we can put somewhere else, that's all I'm saying.
I have a question for you, since you were talking about this maintenance bill.
Yes, sir.
On those trucks, do they have an AccuSump system? familiar with what that is.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
What AccuSub system is it's a tube that holds several quarts of oil, and when you hit the key, it primes the engine before it ever turns over.
Right.
So when you're cold starting, and especially a diesel, that is the hardest time it is on any engine that's cold start, but it's really bad on a diesel. And if, in the future, y'all can look into that, I'll promise you it will extend engine life.
About the best answer I can give you on the oil in the fire engines is there's a lot in it.
No, I know there's a lot in it, but it's not where it needs to be.
Sure.
When you go to hit the key, anything that's got a spring, it's pushed the oil out of it. This primes the whole engine.
Right.
And it's something that we've used, you know, it's especially good on something that has to be cold started in a moment's notice. It is really a lifesaver.
I will pass that on to Captain Stockton. He is our vehicle maintenance guy.
Look into that.
Perhaps.
Call it AccuSub is what it's called, but they got other names that might be in the general industry use.
Any idea what one of those would cost?
Oh, the cheap ones are probably $300 or $400. But what you would need is one that's activated electrically, so that when you hit the key, it would do it. Most of us use one that's operated off a valve. Open the valve up, you put a couple extra quarts in there, and it automatically feeds it. Once the motor gets oil pressure, it's back in there. When the motor loses oil pressure, it feeds it. Say like you run into a situation where you're running, and you run a few quarts low, and it starts jacking with the oil pressure, it will feed oil into it. It might save, you know, it wouldn't save you long term, but it's really good on cold starts.
Sure. I will have him look into that, and perhaps we can bring that back to you another day. But it will probably result in needing to raise that line item a little more.
Well, careful what you ask.
Okay, Steve has a question.
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Marvin, I was just curious, I remember when we did the enterprise thing, they were talking about the different ways that we put our budget. And they said, if I recall, there was going to be a condo sale, vehicles, based on the rooms, and we would have proceeds from that. So is any of that, like,
No, sir, it's not. I just put in, what our general maintenance would be to cover our lease payment, and all that extra money that we're gonna get from that, it's not in.
so that should be to the benefit.
That should be to the benefit of the general fund, yes.
And then another question,
And the reason I didn't is because it's unknown, yeah.
no, I don't know. You gave us columns for the adopted, often in the past, you told us the actual,
Well, let me tell you the truth. Encode come up with this new system we got, and it prints it out a whole lot different than it does before. We don't have the big open sheets that I've given you here. We had to make those ourselves. So it's an encode thing, but I do have that you want, and I can provide that to y'all. It's just it's a lot different than it was before.
So have you, in the past, I know over the years, our budgeting process has improved a lot, dramatically. We used to spend multiple hours a day working with the chief manager, you're spending a lot more time on it. Even before that, it was improved a lot. But still, it is our job as legislators.
Right. Yes, sir. I know.
Ask for it, but we need to. But in years past, sometimes there would be accounts where the budget was high, and we only spent a little bit of money, and we would always ask about that, and sometimes move money around. So have you done that at that level so that if we're looking at the adopted budget for the current year, we know it's the actual good close?